Hello everyone, this lesson is about the impact of Hitler's rule. This is the second part of chapter 3. Okay, as you watch this lesson video, you should have your physical hard copy notes with you, and you'll notice that in these notes there are many blanks here. So as you read the slides, take note of the headers. You should know which part of the notes are really going through at each point in time, and fill out the blanks. If you do want to add some additional notes, there are blank spaces for you to do so. All right. Okay, I shall start with the slide. Okay, as I was saying, in this chapter, you're going to see how did Hitler's rule impact the people in Germany, just like how in the Stalin chapter, we examine how Stalin impacted the people in the USSR. And we're going to see if Hitler's rule was beneficial or not beneficial, and to who. So you can start to imagine that different groups of people will be impacted by Hitler's rule differently. So you will need to know who was impacted in what way. All right, and was life under Hitler a bed of roses? Okay, who was it rosy for, and who suffered tremendously under Hitler? All right, this is the first part of the notes you want to fill. Okay, so as we study the impact of Hitler, we're going to examine it from three angles: political, economic, and social impact. Okay, this is the small mind map you have to fill in at the front of your notes. Okay, just like how in Stalin, political, economic, social impact, we're going to study Hitler's. Okay, this is a quick summary of all the points under political, economic, and social impact. Later, we'll cover it in detail. All right. Okay, so we're going to study how Hitler's rule impacted people in politics, social, and economic. Okay, so let's start with the first part of the notes. What was Hitler? Who was the man, and what did he believe in? We kind of covered a little bit of this in the previous lesson, but let's go through. Okay, so Hitler's main idea was obviously to make Germany great again. Okay, he wants to make Germany prosper, stronger. He wants to avenge the humiliation Germany faced after signing the TOV. Okay, so he wanted to build this thing called the Third Reich, which is like the meaning for Reich is like empire. So you have to build a third empire. Okay, he also wants to create living space called Lebensraum. Okay, he wants Germans to have plenty of territory to live on. He wants to get this living space by taking the land it needs from weaker neighboring countries. So he plans on invading other countries, expanding Germany's territory so that Germans have more land. Okay, and within Germany itself, he wants the nation to be pure. Okay, he only wants the pure Germans or the Aryans, okay, to live in Germany. Okay, and he considers this group of people, the Aryans, as superior, and they have to stay racially pure. So one way they're going to stay pure is they're going to physically get rid of the people, maybe kill them or imprison people who are not Aryans. And for the Aryans themselves, Hitler will later on discourage them or do not allow them to intermarry with other races so that the bloodline stay pure. Okay, so this is an example of an ideal Aryan family: the husband out working, the mother staying at home looking after 2 or 3 children. Okay, this is Hitler's vision. Okay, and he was willing to recognize people, okay, to achieve this vision. You can see that Hitler also likes, he thinks Germans are superior. You see the tall man, muscular and strong. That's his impression of Germans. Okay, so the first part, we're going to look at political impact. Okay, so the first impact of Hitler's rule was democracy was destroyed in Germany. So previously under the Weimar government, people were able to vote for different parties, and these different parties have chance at coming to power. Okay, so what is democracy? So democracy is a system of government which all citizens, okay, together they can determine public policy. They can determine who will represent them in the government. Okay, and they all citizens, as long as you're a citizen, you should have an equal opportunity to express your opinion and vote for the leaders. Okay, so Hitler destroyed this system. Instead of people voting for their leaders to run the country, Hitler effectively consolidated power into his hands, and the Nazi Party was to rule Germany, like forever under Hitler or Hitler's successors. Okay, so this was some of the things he did, okay, to consolidate power and destroy democracy. So, for example, in 1933, the Reichstag was dissolved. Dissolved means it does not exist anymore. He called for new elections. Okay, but before the elections can take place, suddenly the Reichstag building, the parliament building, caught fire, and Hitler decided to blame it on his political rivals, the communists. So he accused the communists of trying to overthrow the government by force. Okay, so what happens after he accused them of this? Okay, so this is the scene of the Reichstag fire. Okay, so because the parliament, the government building was on fire, they were convinced like there's some sort of terrorist attack, basically. So Hitler convinced the President Hindenburg, to grant him emergency power. So when Hitler gained this emergency power, he was able to control Germany very tightly. So, for example, all political rights are suspended. He had the power to just, arrest people without trial. Okay, and after that, when the election came in 1933, the Nazis won a good size of the votes, 43%, almost a 50% majority. Okay, so in 1933, so just now it was 5th of March, okay, Nazis won quite a big proportion of the votes, okay, but just less than a month later, Hitler, okay, gave himself full dictatorial power. So full dictatorial power, dictatorial comes from the word dictator. So he made himself a dictator. He was able to do things and ignore the constitution, Reichstag, and president. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a constitution means, basically, he can ignore the laws. Okay, he can ignore the parliament, the other leaders that voted in. He can ignore the president. Okay, and to give him this power, he needed a 2/3 majority. Okay, to give him this power. So one way to do it is he made the Communist Party illegal and he arrested his opponents. Okay, and on 23rd, 1933, after his opponents were eliminated, he was able to get 2/3 of the votes, and he was able to give himself full power. Okay. Okay, so you see, after he acquired full powers, he imposed more laws to remove other parties from existing. He banned trade unions. So trade unions, for those of you who forget, they are supposed to represent workers, like worker leaders. Okay, so he reorganized them, okay, to make sure that the Nazis control all the workers. Okay, and all other parties was banned, and Germany became what we call a one-party dictatorship. Dictatorship basically means rule by one man. Okay, so the one man obviously refers to Hitler. Okay, another impact of Hitler's rule was he was able to remove his political rivals. So just now we saw that he was able to remove the communists and the other political parties. But within the Nazi party itself, Hitler also had some enemies. There were some people who were not happy with Hitler, and Hitler felt like they were threats that have to be removed. Okay, so let's start with a bit of the timeline. In 1921, we saw that the SA, they were very grateful, okay, and very loyal to the Nazis. So for those of you who forgot what's SA, SA refers to the Nazi Party's private army. So you can annotate this on your notes if you forget what the SA stands for. Okay, so Nazis created this small army, okay, to help them achieve their political goals, okay, and to protect the Nazi meetings from other people, okay. And they try to force people to vote for Nazis by pressurizing, and so they basically acted like, like big gangs. And there was a leader of the SA, okay, called Ernst Röhm. Okay, and it was very strong. It was almost 4 million people strong. Okay, so it was a very powerful organization. Okay, and this is the leader, Ernst Röhm. Okay, now Rome called for the SA to be made into a second German army. So Germany has its main army. So this is Hitler's Nazi Party army. He wanted it to be officially like an army. Okay, and large firms. Okay, he wanted the large firms, large companies to be nationalized. Okay, they were afraid. Okay, Hitler was afraid that the SA was becoming too powerful. Okay, so Hitler wanted to make sure nobody within his party got so powerful. Okay, and Hitler wanted to be the one man with full power. He's not going to even share the power with Ernst Röhm or any other one else. Okay, so the leader of the SA, Ernst Röhm, was very disappointed. He thought he will be given a more important role, and he started to create trouble for Hitler. Okay, so this is what one of the things Ernst Röhm said. He said that what that ridiculous corporal says mean nothing to us. I have not the slightest intention of keeping this agreement. Hitler's a traitor. At the very least, must go on leave. If we can't get there without him, we'll get there without him. Okay, so this ridiculous corporal obviously refers to Hitler. So Ernst Röhm is basically like a general, okay, by training, and he has very little respect for Hitler. Okay, he has very little respect. So when you're Hitler, imagine your subordinate have very little respect for you. How will you feel and what will you do to protect yourself? Okay, so you can see Ernst Röhm feels like he's a very great man, very powerful, always making himself dressed very nicely, very good. Okay, so what did Hitler do? Okay, so Hitler suddenly say, okay, I give you some few seconds to read. So Hitler was saying, drive carefully when you come out to the hotel. You must drive out without making a noise. If you see a SA guy in front of the hotel, don't wait for them to report to me. Drive on and stop at the hotel entrance. And after some silence, Rhodes wants to carry coup. And I see she will run out of man. I could believe anything but not cool by Rome. Okay, so Hitler was suspicious that Rome wants to carry out a coup. So a coup refers to he wants to seize power. He thought Rome wants to seize power from Hitler. Okay, so Hitler was very suspicious then. Okay, so Hitler proceeded to arrest Rome. Okay, and so this was the scene of how Hitler arrested Rome. You can see that it was quite early in the morning at 6:30. He ran to Rome's hotel. Okay, and they were accompanied by this group of people called the SS. So SS are like elite group of the party. So they are like the rival to SA. So one group was SA and another group was SS. So he led the SS to arrest the leader of the SA. So Rome was very surprised and he was arrested. Okay. So not only Rome was arrested, okay, the many leaders of the SA, including Rome's friends and followers, were arrested. Okay. He dragged them out of bed and shot many of them. All right, and many opponents were also, killed in the same night. So that's why it's called the Night of the Long Knives, because it was all happened in one night. Very swiftly, many people were killed. Okay, so Hitler was able to impose a lot of fear on other people, on his rivals. Okay, so many political leaders who opposed him were killed, or arrested. So Hitler basically have little to no threats from the Nazi party. He's the real strong man in the party now with no threats. Okay, so many of them were arrested and shot, and after the SA leaders were killed, the SA became less important, and the rival group, the SS, became the main security force of the Nazi party. Okay, so you can see Hitler shooting many of the leaders, and the rest of the people is basically surrendering. Okay. Now, in 1934, Hitler became Führer. Okay, so Führer is kind of like, it means the leader. Okay, so the supreme leader, the one and true leader. Okay, so after President Hindenburg died, okay, Hitler, okay, took over Hindenburg's power. So he was the chancellor, the prime minister at that time. So he combined, okay, the role of chancellor plus president into one job called the Führer. So he gave himself full power. Okay, and many people were made to swear allegiance to Hitler, okay, including the army. They go something like this: I swear by God this secret oath, I will render unconditional obedience to Adolf Hitler, the Führer of the German Reich and people, supreme commander of the armed forces, and will be ready as a brave soldier to risk my life at any time for this oath. So the soldiers were made to swear this oath to serve Hitler, basically. So they are not, Hitler basically becomes Germany. It's more important than the country itself already. Okay. So many people were made to say many of these oaths, okay, not just the people in the army. All right. So now that we examine the political impact, which we saw how democracy ended, okay, let's look at the social impact of Hitler's rule. Social impact refers to people's daily life. So we're going to look at different groups, okay, and how their daily life was affected by Hitler's rule. Okay, so recall, okay, we are going to look at social impact. Okay, so the first social impact you want to teach you is the rise of the secret police. Okay, and after that we will see how Hitler used propaganda. So it's quite similar to Stalin. There were use of force, there was propaganda, there was the persecution of minority groups, and there was certain impact on the role of women. Okay, so it's quite similar, but obviously they have different details. Okay, Hitler have very different visions of how the country should look and run. Okay, so the secret police, okay, Nazis like the Stalin also want to use fear to control people. Okay, so wants to create a police state, and the secret police, Gestapo refers to the secret police. SA and SS refer to the party's army. Okay, so okay, you can see that the SASS, okay, they serve the party. So anybody who's not under the Nazi party or trying to oppose the Nazi party can be arrested. They will be thrown into concentration camps without due process of the law. Without due process of the law means they were not able to defend themselves. So if they were innocent, they cannot even prove they are innocent. They just assume they're guilty and throw them into the concentration camp. Okay, so police were able to arrest people even before they do anything wrong. Okay, can just act purely based on their suspicion, and they often have people, okay, draw up, lists of suspected enemies. So people start betraying each other, a bit like what happened during the Japanese occupation. Okay, so anybody considered a threat was arrested. If you joke about the Nazi party or Hitler, you could be killed. Okay, if you were doing things that the Nazi party like homosexuality, okay, they can use this to okay, they can accuse someone of being a homosexual, and under the Nazi party it was not supported, and they can use that as a chance to just arrest you. So I can say, oh, you're homosexual, I arrest you. Okay, so this is the Gestapo, okay, founded by this guy called Goering. Okay, secret police, He silenced political opponents and he was very ruthless. Okay, so under the emergency law, just now we saw Hitler did the thing called the Enabling Act. Okay, let's write it out again. Enabling Act. Okay, so Hitler was able to suspend political rights. So anybody, okay, can be arrested. Okay. Anyone suspected of being an enemy against the government can be arrested and you cannot get a fair trial. And the impact was the German people have very little freedom and there's no justice. Okay, I believe you have to take that down. Okay, so feel free to pause the video at any point in time. You need to copy your things. Huh? Okay, so just this is more about the SS, the Schutzstaffel. So it is the private army of the party, but it was closer to Hitler than the SA. Okay, and it's more powerful than the SA. Okay, and it's more ruthless, and it was led by this man called Heinrich Himmler. Okay, and the SS usually wear a black uniform, whereas the SA usually wear a brown uniform. Okay, so the SS and Gestapo killed many people who opposed Hitler, and they were not accountable to the court. Okay, so they don't care whether it's legal or illegal, they can arrest you. And many people fear them, and basically they were very fearful and therefore will learn to behave the way the Nazi party wanted. All right, so this is a SS uniform. Okay, you can see some pictures. They try to rule by fear, scare people, and make Hitler look very strong and very powerful, so people were not there to do anything fun. Okay, you can see many people killed in the room, and you can see what looks like an SS officer washing his hands, and his hands was full of blood. So what can that say? What does that say about Hitler's rule? Okay. So informers. Okay, so basically to know who are the enemies, you need information, you need intelligence. So the secret police often have people who are acting as spies in the neighborhoods. Okay, they were encouraged to report on people who was not loyal to Hitler. Okay, and this have a very big impact on ordinary Germans. Imagine you cannot even trust your neighbors or even members of your family. Okay, and you have to watch how you behave and what you say all the time. How will this impact ordinary German? You'll be living in so much fear and you'll feel so controlled. Okay, and there's no freedom. All right. So now that we cover secret police, let's look at propaganda and censorship. So Hitler don't just want to rule by fear, he also wants people to love him. A bit like Stalin. He wants to be feared and also loved. Right? So how did Hitler go about doing his propaganda? He only allowed pro-Nazi messages to be shown on all your media. Okay, so for example, in musical performance, okay, for example, posters, they all depict Hitler in a positive light. Okay, so anything that's not for Hitler will not be allowed to be published. Okay, now for Hitler, you can see a poster, it looks like the Incredible Hulk. All right, so in your HI, okay, which we'll learn in the next few lessons, we'll be focusing more about propaganda, and we are going to learn how propaganda is employed to make people believe in something and to do something. And there are a lot of creative ways to draw propaganda posters, and you will also get a hands-on experience at making one yourself. Okay, so the propaganda could be very simple. They might have a useful slogan and always tend to promote a message that, Hitler is great, we are on your side. Okay, so you can see these are some examples of propaganda. Very good use of colors, images, big fonts, symbols. You can see a swastika and things like that. Okay, soldiers in uniform marching to patriotic music. Okay, so it really sends a very clear message. Okay. So there are also propaganda that were targeted at Hitler's and the enemies of the Nazi party. So for example, the one in the middle is about the Jews. So they were obviously trying to paint the Jews in a very negative way by drawing them like this. And how do I know this is about the Jews? Even though I don't read any German, because we see the Star of David or the symbol of Judaism here. Okay, and we might have stories about how the Jews, like this, how this Jewish doctor behave. Okay, just looking at the first few sentences, you can say, oh, you know, the doctor made your patients wait a long time, things like that. The doctor has the face of a devil. Okay, so even stories like this, they are meant to be for kids. Okay, were created to send a message that the Nazi party want to send. All right. Okay, so they try to make Nazi parties propaganda all over the country, and people will be there. You hear the same message, they'll start to believe in them. Okay, and one of the ways to do this is the Nazi party try to control all means of media like radio stations. There were loudspeakers everywhere, broadcasting the party's message. And Hitler often gave speeches, okay, and people will hear these speeches on radio, and some of them are on television even. Yeah. Okay, so Hitler controls the cinema, and all movies are praising the Nazis, showing the Jews as the enemies of the state. Okay, so this was all done by the Ministry of Propaganda. Just now you saw this man is the Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. So he's in charge of many of the propaganda efforts in the Nazi party, and he's a Hitler fanatic. Okay, he loves Hitler. When Hitler later commits suicide, he'll join him and kill off his entire family. That's how crazy he is for Hitler. Okay, another poster casting a negative image about the Jews. I don't think this is the Jews. I think these are the communists. Yeah, I apologize. How do I know? Because I see the communist logo here. All right. So another way to do propaganda is also through parade and rallies. So, for example, by organizing a big parade, okay, people can get a very positive impression of the Nazi party. You see a lot of flags. You see a lot of very neatly dressed soldiers marching in unison. Okay, it will appeal to the Germans greatly. Okay, this is an example of a song of the Nazi party used, and from the lyrics you can imagine what message he's trying to send. Okay. Okay, so besides publishing messages of his own, Hitler also makes sure that messages that were against him were not published. So, i.e., they do censorship. So, newspaper or other forms of media were strictly controlled. Okay, books written by Jews or other people were even burned in public. Okay, so they don't want people to be reading the wrong things. All right. Let's look at the role of women and youth now. Okay, so like most Germans, okay, and like what Stalin did, we want to brainwash the next generation. Okay, and this one way the Nazis did it was to sell youth organizations. So boys were made to go through things like military athletics, for girls were prepared for motherhood. Okay, doing all your home economics and things like that. Okay, and German youth who are not member of this group often find it difficult to enter university or obtain jobs. So, for example, it means like every young German has to join this sort of like a CCA to get CCA points, to get a good school, to get a good job. Next time, if you don't join, you will be disadvantaged. So, being the practical people that they are, most people will join so that they can get at least a good future. And when many of them join, they start to really believe some of the things that these organizations tell them. And when they go into adulthood, they will continue to pass on this message to others. Okay, so you can see one of the two groups, the Hitler Youth and the League of German Maidens, one for the men, one for the boys, one for the girls. Okay, there are some YouTube videos in the slides. You can watch it on your own, your free time. Okay, so the children were taken away often for training. Okay, for boys, maybe it could be military training to prepare them to become soldiers in the future. They were encouraged to spend little time alone. Okay, why do you think so? Because when they are together, okay, they'll feel a sense of community. Okay, And when you are together, okay, you do not have the time to have other kind of thoughts. For example, if you have anti-Hitler thoughts, you will not be able to share with them if you are in a big group. Cannot say out loud if you are in a big group. So it's also a way to control people, make people fear saying the wrong things. Okay, by encouraging them to be in a big group. So everyone will always say the right things, do the right things at all times. Okay, so you can see this is a sample of a timetable. Okay, you can compare with your timetable, but one very interesting that stands out, you can see, is this subject called the race study. So they're going to study about why the German race, the Aryan race are superior, why the Jews are undesirable. They are also going to study about the beliefs of the party. Okay, so besides their usual academics, okay, they really have a dedicated period for brainwashing. Okay, one very interesting one you see here is the science of breeding. So I think besides learning about the science, they also learn this thing called eugenics. So eugenics is talking about study of the genes. So why study the genes? Because they want to teach them how to purify their genes. They want to prove to them that if you are pure Aryan race, pure German, you have a better body, you are better than, you are physically better than everyone. They want to convince them that they are really superior. Okay, so they are kind of abusing science a bit here. Okay, here you see some photos of them taking part in activities, feeling like, Hitler gives us a good life, you should be thankful to Hitler. Okay, and there are obviously a lot of posters like Stalin involving Hitler with children to paint an image that Hitler loved the children and children should love Hitler back. Okay, and Hitler is a very stereotypical person. He always believed like the boys, are masculine and they should serve the army, whereas girls should stay at home and they give them colorful, give them toy and tea set. So it's kind of a very sexist viewpoint Hitler had. Okay, so many people have to join this organization. If you do not like to join this organization, you are inviting a lot of trouble and a lot of suspicion to yourself. Okay, so what impact does this have on people? People were directly controlled by the Nazi party, okay, very closely. Okay, and you are brainwashed at a very young age. And the education was controlled by the Nazis. You are very loyal, and even teachers will obviously have to be brainwashed before you can brainwash the children. Okay, they were taught things like, how the TOV was unfair. They were taught about the race. So basically, they were taught about things that the Nazis believed. Okay, I know there are a lot of points here, but I really do not expect any of you to memorize all of them. Okay, what is more important is you understand some of the things they do, and when you have to recall, you give one or two examples. I think that is really not too bad already. Okay. Okay, you can see these were some of the subjects that we talked about just now. All right, so this is Hitler's view on education. So he wants the youth to be brutal, domineering, fearless, and even cruel. Okay, he wants to breed, to nurture Germans into a tough breed of people that can later help him to conquer the world. All right. And this is a very interesting maths question. Okay, you can see it's very funny how there's so many war references to it. Okay, so from a young age, they are probably preparing them for war even. Look at this subject. It's quite interesting. To kill a mentally ill person costs approximately 4 months a day. So obviously it's a maths question, but even the maths questions are very political. It's to brainwash people into thinking that, people like the mentally ill are a burden to society and should be eliminated. Right. Okay, here, this is a very sad photo. You can see a group of Jewish teachers and students were made to leave the school because they were Jewish. Okay. All right, I'll let you read this in your own time. Okay, so on the one side, you have people made to love Hitler, but on the other side, there's also a use of terror. Okay, so life is like this. There's the nice side and there's the dark side. Okay, what about women? So women, just now, as we said, in teaching the girls, they want the girls to really to be confined at home, to be like housewives basically. Okay, so they believe that women should be concerned with children, church, and kitchen. Okay, and they see women's main role to produce more racially pure German babies, to make Germany stronger by having more babies. And if you had a work before, they will encourage or even force to give up their jobs to stay at home. Okay, and if you born many children, you were given awards. Okay, kind of like what our government is doing today. Okay, so you can see the posters and this poem below that say, that encourage women to live a certain kind of life based at home. Okay, awards for mothers who live the ideal life of a mother. Okay, last but not least, this is probably the biggest impact of Hitler's rule. Okay, the persecution of Jews and minority groups. Okay, so Hitler created this large network of concentration camps where thousands and thousands and thousands of people were arrested in the first few years, and they were very badly treated. They were forced to work very long hours with very little food to eat. Basically, they will work to death. Okay, and many of the undesirables, such as the Jews, such as the communists, okay, they were all taken away from the cities into the concentration camps. If they can be re-educated to accept Nazi ideas, good. If they cannot be re-educated, sometimes they are just outright killed. Okay. So this was some of the example of how a concentration camp looks like. Okay, so it's usually close to maybe a factory, so that the workers can actually work and still be contributing to the economy in some way. And in the concentration camp, you can see there are many different markings. Okay, they want to know clearly who are the Jews, who are the criminals, and so on. Okay, so everyone is basically labeled literally. All right. Yeah, and the Jews are prominent for wearing the big yellow star that we saw just now. Okay, if you are disabled, you are probably in the worst state because you are both disabled, you are both a Jew, both traits which the Germans, which Nazis did not like. Okay, and not only were the men targeted, even women and children were not spared. All right, so they are treated very cruelly. Okay, just now I mentioned that they want to purify the iron race, so inter-ethnic marriages was not allowed. Okay, so you see, okay, just now we saw that maths question that was kind of racist, right? So this is another one. They want to convince people that if you marry Jew, okay, you will have a defect. Your child will have defects. Okay, might be mentally ill or physically ill or whatever. Okay, there is an example of anti-Jewish propaganda. Okay, I won't cover in detail. You can pause and read it yourself. Okay, say organize a boycott of Jewish shops. So ordinary Germans were encouraged to not visit Jewish shops and buy their things. Okay, instead they should just go to German shops. So it's obviously very discriminatory. Okay, now so to determine who's a Jew, okay, it's a very complicated business. So in the end, they decided, okay, everyone, if you have you have 4 grandparents, okay, if you have 1 or more Jewish grandparent, okay, you are considered a Jew. Okay, so that is how they decide who's a Jew. Okay, people with 4 German grandparents were considered pure. People, okay, if you descended from 3 or more Jewish grandparents, okay, you are obviously very impure. Okay, and Jews were discriminated. Not only were they thrown into the concentration camp, if they were not arrested, in the early days they were not outright arrested, okay, but their life was made very difficult. First of all, they could not work for the government. Just now we saw that their shops were boycotted. Okay, they were not able to inherit land and so on. They had no right to vote. Okay, they cannot marry anyone who's considered a pure German. Okay, they cannot go to places like swimming pools and things like that. That they use different facilities. So you can see these have very big impact on your day-to-day life and your future. Okay, signs and benches that do not welcome Jews. Okay, so one of the very tragic nights that happened in Germany was called the Night of the Broken Glass. So just now we learned about the Night of the Long Knife. So this one is the broken glass. Okay, basically the same idea is the broken glass refers to the broken glass of many shop houses and homes. So in 1938, okay, because one German was killed allegedly by a Jew, okay, so there were a lot of revenge attacks against the Jews. So Jews were attacked overnight. Many shops was attacked, burned, robbed, okay, and many Jews were killed in just one night and arrested. So this is a synagogue, which is where the Jews, excuse me, where the Jews hold their religious activities. Okay, so people also attacked the place of worship. Shops were attacked, the glasses were broken, hence the Night of Broken Glasses or Kristallnacht. And arrested Jews, arrested in mass by the thousands. Okay. And this is obviously the worst manifestation of anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism. So in total, more than 6 million Jews were killed, okay, during Hitler's rule of Germany, okay, many in the later part of the war years. And it's not just Germany, any territory that was under Germany, that means territories conquered by Germany, have to follow the same policy that you mentioned earlier. So a Jew living in a neighboring country and your country fell to Germany, your life is in danger because they will be coming up. The Nazis will be coming after you. And Hitler expanded his territory so greatly that so many people were under Nazi rule, and many of the Jews and the so-called undesirables were very badly affected. And here you see a map of many of the terrible concentration camps where the millions of Jews were killed. Okay, so religion, okay, religion was allowed to carry on, unlike the Stalin, okay, but it was very controlled and obviously used to brainwash people as well, to brainwash Nazi values. Okay, however, they also want to close as many churches as possible because they think that like church schools, church youth groups are not considered ideal because they want people to join the Nazi related groups like the Nazi youths and all that. Okay, now for the last part, let's examine how did Hitler's rule affect the economy of Germany. Okay, how did it affect the standard of living of people? Okay, we're going to look at these 4 things: re-employment, rise of big industry, workers' leisure, and militarization. Okay, so we are looking at economic impact. Okay, so what are these 4 points about? Okay, so Germany, Hitler basically has a goal for the economy. He wants to pursue the policy of autarky. Autarky means they want to be self-sufficient. It means you produce enough for yourself. So you do not want to rely on any country for your economy. So for example, if you need to have certain food, you go and produce them yourself. We don't rely on trade with other countries. Okay, so Hitler wants to have 3 main policies. He wants to reduce unemployment. He wants to make the German weapon building industry up so that Germany can become a great military power again after the signing of the TOV. He also wants to be self-sufficient. Okay, so to make sure he has a tight control of the economy, he makes sure that work is not disrupted. So they ban trade unions and ban strikes. So you cannot stop work, just to protest some things. Okay, so Hitler has a very tight control of the workers. Okay, and obviously a lot of propaganda posted to encourage people to work hard and so on. Okay, so trade unions were banned because trade unions always like to fight for workers. So let's write now, they like to fight for workers. So when you are trying to control the workers, make the workers do your bidding, you don't want people to organize the workers and oppose you. So trade unions were banned. Okay, but if you want to have a union, you can join a Nazi-related trade union. So obviously, a Nazi trade union will not oppose the Nazi policies. Okay, and they want to, encourage and educate Germans, to work hard and serve your country. Okay, so though it was tight control, Hitler genuinely wants to improve the life of workers because they know that Germans suffered tremendously after the TOV during the Great Depression. So Hitler also wants to rebuild the economy. Okay, so he does try to give the Germans some privileges, like for example things like cheap holidays. They also try to produce cheap cars that people can own. Okay, so for example the Volkswagen, the people's car. Okay, but few people were able to still afford it. Okay, so new jobs are trying to create. So this is more of the positive side of Hitler's rule. Okay, he's trying to create a lot of employment for people, such as by building big government projects, like you see on the side the road system, like the autobahns. Okay, building projects like schools. All this will require workers, and these people will therefore get a job. Okay, so furthermore, by removing Jews from the economy, by not allowing them to work, by sending them to concentration camp, there are now more jobs that Germans can do, so fewer of them are unemployed. Okay. Okay, so organizations like the National Labor Service were used to help find work for unemployed Germans. Okay, women were encouraged to stay at home, so there were jobs now available for men to do. Okay, many factories were state-run, and if you dare to oppose Hitler and the Nazi Party, you'll be arrested and sent to a labor camp. Okay, so another impact was the rise of big businesses and militarization. So rearmament, okay, means to increase weapon production. So they want to build factories that can produce weapons. Okay, and it's very big business friendly because it means that there's more demand for raw materials like coal, steel. Okay, small businesses were not beneficial, but large businesses that had very close ties with Nazis were given priority, okay, and treated better. All right. So although unemployment fell, the Germany economy did not always improve. Okay, because Germany was still lacking certain resources like the steel and what we mentioned just now. So you might still have to buy from other countries. Okay. Agriculture wise, okay, Hitler also wanted to increase the agriculture, wanted to feed people better. Okay, so these were some of the things that Hitler do. Okay, one of the interesting things you see is the government was able to introduce rationing. So for example, if there's a war breaks out and food supply becomes short, the government can control how much food people get. Okay, so it's very tight control. All right, so some cartoons. So this is probably an armament factory. You can see the swastika banner behind. It's indicating that this is in Germany. You can see all this what looks like tanks being built. So the German economy was a lot based on building all this military industry. Okay, so this is a summary of how Hitler's rule impacted the people. I know it's a lot of points for one video. I do not expect you to understand everything in one go, but with more rounds of revision into your sec course, you will slowly understand the points better and be able to recall them. All right, so at the end of the day, when you do an exam question, we'll ask you whether Hitler's rule benefited people or not. You should be able to evaluate whether Hitler's rule overall is more positive, more negative, and why. All right. So with that, I shall end this lesson. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye bye.